Hi, I'm Lee Goldberg, and welcome to One Final Twist.
Today, we are joined by best-selling author Lee Goldberg, whose new novel, Murder by Design, will be available June 1st from Thomas and Mercer. It's available now if you're an Amazon First Reads person. Thank you to Megan Beatty Communications for arranging us to talk. If everyone could be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this interview. Welcome, Mr. Goldberg.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So, tell us about your new book, Murder by Design.
It is a classic whodunit that kind of pokes fun at the whole whodunit genre. It's about a detective, very rich, very attractive, who was shot in the face and now has a neurological disorder, which makes it difficult for him to think before he speaks. What he thinks comes right out of his mouth and gets him into lots of trouble. But that's not what makes him truly unique. It's that he looks at the world around us, the built, man-made world around us, and uses that to solve crimes. We spend probably 90% of our lives in a world constructed by man to help us deal with nature, and we spend very little in the actual real world. And the world that's built around us is here to shape our behavior, control our behavior, funnel our behavior. And there's nothing we can do that doesn't require the active participation of the designed world around us. And that's what Bixby uses to solve crimes.
Bixby, to me, he's classic. He's funny, charming, that mean, I guess you could say he's kind of mean, and he's got his neurological thing. And I finished the book last night, and I'm not so sure that it may be an act. I don't, is it, or I mean, you
That's
can't.
that's a good question. Bixby is aided in his investigations by Wally Nash, an aspiring actor who narrates the book, and is not so convinced that Bixby's neurological disorder is as bad as everybody thinks it is. He believes that maybe Bixby's like Columbo and is using this disorder to kind of put people off their game, to offend them, so maybe they're not noticing how probing his questions are. It's hard to know exactly how much of this is Bixby not being able to control himself and how much is Bixby having fun. And I'm not going to reveal which it is. Maybe it's a little both.
I don't blame you. I've read several books a year, up in the hundreds, and the twist in this one, it got me. It got me good.
It got the hosts of One Final Twist?
It did.
My twist twisted you? Oh
That's
my
it.
God.
The twist got me, but I didn't. I had no clue, and that just kind of boom right there. And I'm not going to ruin it for anybody because you have to read this book. It's so funny, and it's so fast paced. It's what, maybe, the core of the book is what, maybe 3 or 4, 5 days.
Oh, in terms of time it passes, yeah, it's very
Yeah,
fast moving in terms of time. That was intentional on my part.
yeah,
I wanted to do a classic whodunit, but also to subvert it because, the classic whodunit is kind of boring and pedantic at times and so formulaic.
hmm
And I wanted my book to move as fast as a thriller while still being a classic whodunit, but also poking fun at all the classic whodunits and all those tropes. So I
yeah.
want to go headlong into the trope, say that's a trope, and then kind of go in a different direction. So yes, this book has the classic eccentric detective and his sidekick, and they're solving impossible crimes, but they're aware of all those other. They're aware of Sherlock Holmes and Monk and
Yeah,
Hercule Poirot.
yeah,
They're not living in a bubble. They're aware of Nero, Wolfe, and Archie. And
yeah.
having written so many of those myself, it was nice to kind of go against the constraints of the genre a little bit.
So I read. I didn't read your acknowledgement page because it's like an encyclopedia back there. Um, how many books did you research in writing this one book?
Dozens and dozens. And the reason I included that almost academic afterword with all my sources was because I was afraid people would read this book and say, "Oh my God, Lee is so full of crap. None of this is real. It's ridiculous." The way Bixby solves crimes is ridiculous. His house is ridiculous. None of this has any bearing in the real world. And I just wanted to show anybody who might be interested that no, this science exists. It's real. And this house that Bixby has is based on real houses that are here in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So no, I didn't. I mean, I made stuff up, but I didn't. It didn't completely make it up. It's not as over the top as it seems.
That's
And so that was my way of letting people know that, as wild as this book may seem, it's actually grounded in reality.
mhm. Your book was actually the second book this year that I've read with the lead character has a brain injury, and they have very similar characteristics. And I'll probably cut this part out because I don't want to blurb another book while we're talking about your
Oh, I
book.
don't mind. What's the other book?
It's called "To the End of Reckoning" by
I haven't
Joseph
heard of it.
Moldover. It came out just a few weeks ago, and the lead character is so similar. He's so abrupt and rude, and he has no filter.
But is he
Uh,
ridiculously attractive,
no, he's not
grotesquely
ridiculous.
rich, and getting laid
No,
constantly?
no, he's not ridiculously attractive. He's an older man. He's a curmudgeon almost. But
Well, in a way, and I haven't read that other book, and I don't mean to cast any shade on it. So many of these eccentric detectives, and pardon my language here, Teresa, it's going to sound as sexist as Edison Bixby. So many of these detectives are so screwed up and celibate. They can't get laid. They'd have no love lives. I wanted to have a detective who can't stop sleeping with women. I mean, this
yeah,
guy is irresistible. He's
yeah,
the opposite. He's the Hugh Hefner of detectives.
he is.
Because Sherlock Holmes doesn't get laid, and when he does, it's by a maniacal woman who's even more messed up than he is. Certainly, Monk doesn't get laid. Nero Wolfe is too freaking fat to get laid. Who knows what's going on with Hercule Poirot? There's so many of these detectives. It's like they might as well be priests, and
Yeah,
some of them are. In
yeah,
fact, some
yeah.
of them are. Father
And
Dowling and Grant Chester and all that. So that was another way I wanted to do it differently. This detective actually has a love life, not just a love life, a ridiculous, nonsensical James Bond kind of love life.
he does. And the whole part where the is the actress that was visiting Wally, when she gave Wally her number and told her to
Yeah.
give it to Bixby, I thought
Yeah.
that was just I just thought, wow, there we go. So you've mentioned a few times Monk and Diagnosis Murder. Uh, well, you didn't mention Diagnosis Murder, but we're going to talk a little bit about it. How how was it to create those characters and to write such some of the most off the wall stuff in those TV series?
Well, first I have to correct a misconception. I did not create Diagnosis Murder, and I did
Oh,
not create Monk. Diagnosis Murder was created by the late Joyce Burdett, and Monk was created by the incredibly talented Andy Breckman, who has a new series coming up on CBS called Einstein, another eccentric detective, a relative of Albert Einstein. It'll be
ah,
on CBS this fall. I was just lucky enough to be invited to, in the case of Diagnosis Murder, I was the executive producer, and me and my writing partner, Bill Rabkin, wrote more episodes of that show than anybody else. We produced over 100 episodes. We were very, very associated with that show. And then I wrote 8 books afterward. So people just assumed, oh, Lee created
ah,
Diagnosis Murder. I did not. And then Monk, I wrote 15 Monk novels, 3 of which became episodes. And again, people either assumed that I created Monk or that I ripped the show off. I wrote a book called Mr. Monk Goes to the Firehouse, which became the episode Mr. Monk Can't See a Thing, which I also wrote. And people started writing letters to my publisher saying, Mr. Monk Goes to the Firehouse is a blatant ripoff of the classic Monk episode. Mr. Monk can't see a thing. Lee Goldberg should be ashamed of himself. We actually had
oh.
to print a new edition of Mr. Monk Goes to the Firehouse that had a disclaimer saying the book came first. Lee wrote them both, the episode of the book. So, and that became a problem throughout the 15 Monk novels. But writing those characters. The key is what I just said, writing the characters. Yes, mysteries are important, but for the mysteries to resonate, for people to want to come back every week and watch or pick up each new book, it's the characters they have to fall in love with. Yes, you're commenting on the twist at the end of Murder by Design, which flatters me and makes me very happy. But I think at the end of the day, what most people will remember from the book, I hope, is, oh, I love or I hated Bixby,
Yeah.
or there are a lot of great mysteries in Monk, but I think that people just love Adrian Monk.
Yes.
And the goal excuse me, when I write an episode of Monk or a book about Monk, or I write an Edison Bixby or an Eve Ronin or anything else, I always start with character. What can I put the character through that would be really interesting, that would create the most drama or the most humor? And that's how I get to the mystery. And that's very true of Edison Bixby. I came up with a way of looking at the world, a way he solves mysteries, and then I said, what could I come up with that would really show me who Edison Bixby is? And that's how that whole mystery happened, because it was a way to explore the Edison Bixby character. And I had to come up with a different. I'm right now in the middle of writing the sequel, and trying to top the first book. Um, I don't think I'll be able to come up with as big a twist, but hopefully a compelling mystery that will show you Edison Bixby in a new light.
When you compare the characters that you've written to like the most fun to write or the most fun to create, how does Bixby fit in?
Well, for me, the most fun to write was probably Monk. I had such a good time writing those books. So Bixby's probably in that same area because I've been writing. That's not to say I don't have a lot of fun writing my other books. I mean, probably the most successful things I write are the Eve Ronin novels. They're insanely popular, and I enjoy that. But I missed the humor of Monk. I missed the classic whodunit structure. So I created Edison Bixby as sort of a palate cleanser. It was fun to write Edison Bixby between two different Eve Ronin novels. So when I finished a police procedural, which Eve Ronin is, and then wrote Bixby, it energized me into going into the next Eve Ronin novel, and I'm having that happen now again. It's fun to do something entirely different. And having spent so many years now writing police procedurals between the 7 or 8 Eve Ronin novels and the 3 Sharp and Walker arson detective novels, I haven't written anything like Bixby since I did Monk. So it's fun to get back to that world of the first person who done it. All my other books are written in the third person.
Yeah.
So there's no authorial voice. I try to get out of it and let my characters drive the story. Whereas with Bixby and my Monk novels, the narrator is driving the story. It was Natalie, his assistant in the Monk books, and it's Wally Nash, Bixby's assistant in these books.
The Wally, he has some pretty good insight in his narration. He jokes about foreshadowing, and he said I just thought that was really neat how he contributes his part, his story to the book, and this just really fun to read that aspect of the
Well,
novel.
that's the other thing I was doing was a little bit of how the sausage is made. Wally's never written a book before. So I have him talking about, oh, here's what's required and here's what they call this. And like the book I'm writing now, I open it by him saying, in the second book, you're supposed to pretend like there was no other book and introduce all the characters for the first time. I don't want to do that. You're just going to have to catch up. It's like, so I have him talking, and then even have him commenting about Elmore Leonard's rules of writing and how Wally does not conform to the rules. And he says, like Elmore Leonard's first rule is don't write about the weather. Well, the weather is the most important thing about Singapore, where it's 90 degrees with 90% humidity. You can't write about Singapore without writing about the weather. Why do people listen to this guy Elmore? So I have some fun also talking about the craft of writing and the structure of a mystery, and I have Wally actually revealing when he's withholding clues because he really wants to stoke the drama.
He did a little bit of that at the end of the first book. Not much,
Yeah.
but just a little bit. You've mentioned you write a lot of police procedurals and mysteries, whodunits. Is there a genre that you would like to dip your toe into that you haven't written?
No, I've been very fortunate in my career. I've written spy novels, I've written big action adventure novels, I've even written some westerns. I mean, I'd like to do more westerns, but westerns are in publishing hospice care right now. They used to have an entire bookshelf at Barnes and Noble. Now they have 1/4
Yeah.
of one bookshelf next to books about, rectal cancer or something. I mean, they've really just ruined the Western genre. They just don't sell. Um, but I did a book that was sort of a police procedural and a Western called Calico a couple years ago that may be the best reviewed book I've ever written. And certainly the movie and TV interest in it has been high, though no movie or TV show has been made yet.
Yeah.
I just go with the kind of stories I want to tell. I love the crime genre, whether it's a thriller or a spy novel, because crime has a nice narrative engine. It just moves things forward. There are real stakes. Westerns have real stakes, and it's just so hard to survive in the Old West. I
Yeah.
mean, you're up against nature and so much else that creates a great story engine. I would like to think that I could write a Larry McMurtry kind of novel or a John Irving novel, but I've come to the realization I can't. I like reading them, but I'd have to have a guy drop dead or someone come in with a gun. I just I just couldn't do it as much as they amuse me. Though to be
You
fair,
have been
Larry
at
McMurtry wrote a lot of great westerns.
Oh yeah.
You've been so this, you have established several series. Is there something that like with Bixby that made you nervous or scared you or that, said, "Oh, I can't do this" when starting a new series?
Yep, Bixby. I'm going through that right now. I mean, I spend so much time swearing at myself as if I'm a different person. Why did Lee create this goddamn series with design where I have to research all this stuff? I mean, it's impossible. I mean, I have to cover these impossible crimes that Bixby solves like that. It's just, it's driving me crazy. I hate myself for boxing myself into this corner. Last time I hated myself this much was I did this Western where no matter what the character did, I had to stop and research it. He walks out the door. Well, what kind of door is it? And how's the door made? And he's going to go get something to eat. Well, what are they going to eat? And where's he going to get it? And how do they keep the food fresh? I mean, I couldn't do a thing in that Western without researching everything. And I hated myself. And,
So
I also hated myself on that arson investigator series, which I'm still doing. But I don't know anything about arson or arson investigation. So every time I come up with a fire and how to solve it, I've got to call 50 arson experts to pick their brains. Or read 1,000 books on arson investigation. Why can't I just come up with something easy? And comparatively, the Eve Ronins are easy. I mean, they're police procedurals. I've interviewed so many cops over my career. I've written so many police scripts and books that I can do a lot of the Eve Ronins without having to do a lot of research. There, it's more of second nature. I still have to do research for each book, but they're a lot easier than, say, a fair clued whodunit, which is a novel, but also a magic trick. Because I'm trying to fool you to not look at this clue and to look over here instead, so you don't see this. Look over here. So it's a puzzle and a game at the same time. It's a novel, and it's hard to serve both.
well, you do a really good job at the research. Your books flow so well, and there's not a lot of mistakes in them. That's evident. You said you do a lot of research. Is there anything that you've ever discovered in research that was like a total shock?
No, but when I was doing my book Malibu Burning, I came up with a way I thought that I could commit arson without being caught. And I called up a guy at the ATF and I said, I'm writing this book about a wildfire. It's actually arson, but I think I've come up with a way for it to be undetectable. And I told him the way. And I don't know what your rules are for profanity, but I'll be careful. I told him my way, and he goes, "F you." And I went, "What?" He said, "F you, you thing, son of a." And I'm like, "What?" He says, "Yes, it would work. It would be undetectable." I went, "Oh, so you want me to change it in my book?" No, no, no. Now we've got to go do it. Excuse me? He said, now we've got to go set a bunch of fires the way you suggested and then see how we could detect it if it ever happened. Really? You're going to yeah, we're going to go set fires the way you just described against a whole bunch of different surfaces and different conditions, and we'll film it and we'll do studies and damn you. Oh, you're actually going to set fires? He said, yes. I said, will you show me the videos? He said, oh, yeah, I'll show you everything.
Can
He
I
says,
watch?
this is why we like working with writers because you guys come up with stuff that would never occur to us. So now we have a chance to prepare for it. So if it ever happens, we might find a way to detect it. Or, look, at least we know this is a possibility in a way someone could create a fire. It never would have occurred to us if you hadn't come up with this plan. So, and it's also weird because it's not so much research as the way research can affect me as a writer. I was doing all this research for Edison Bixby before I even came up with the book. And I was visiting a museum in Tasmania, a museum that is heist proof, theft proof. It's built inside of a mountain. And I looked at it the way Edison Bixby would, and I realized, oh my God, I could rob this place. I could rob this place and get away with it. And I went outside and I walked around. What was that? I came up with this whole way I could rob this museum and get away with it. And I ended up using it in my book, Hidden in Smoke. I created a fictional museum on a Japanese island, but all because I had looked at this real museum the way Bixby would and saw the glaring security flaws in their flawless security, where having great security could be its biggest weakness. And so that surprised me, where I found the research. It's funny. My wife, she's French, and she says to people, if I die before my husband, I don't care if I'm hit by a meteor or a bus. I want a complete investigation because he spends all his time coming up with perfect murders. And she's right to be afraid. I mean, not that I want to kill my wife, but yes, I do spend a lot of time coming up with intricate murders and heists.
You mentioned the Japanese island. Is that the one with the seed bank? Is that,
The
or am I
seed bank.
getting two? I'm getting two books confused
Yeah, I
then.
don't I don't have any seed banks in my books. But I do have a
Okay.
question for you two, since I see you both on screen. Do you share an interior designer? Because you both have that slanting bookcase and a regular bookcase, but yours is in black and hers is in white. It's like, did you fight over who can have the black one and who can have the white one?
This is actually a coffin that my wife made.
Ah, are you taking the hint? Does she have a younger physical therapist or
She,
tennis pro?
she may. You
Ah,
never tell.
I have to ask about the Tasmanian museum there that you were at. So where is actually the oddest place that you've come up with the next big idea for an adventure?
oddest place?
Yeah, like the moment, like it hits you like, oh, I've got it.
Well, sometimes I have an idea for where I want something to be set, and then I go to that place and do the research, and I come up with an entirely different idea. And the museum in Tasmania is absolutely bizarre. If I had written it again, like in my book Hidden in Smoke, in the afterword, I write, "You think this museum is weird? Well, an even weirder version exists in Tasmania. It's outside Hobart. It's built in a mountain like Spectre headquarters in a James Bond film. The art and museum stuff in there is so weird. I mean, you have munitions, but you also have works of art. You also have 30 plaster cast vaginas on the wall. I mean, it's the strangest. It even has in this museum in Tasmania a machine the size of my. It's not the size of my house, but it's big. It's huge, and it eats the food from the commissary or the restaurant at the museum, digests it, and craps it out, and then the crap is used as fertilizer for the garden where the stuff is grown. It's a complete circle. But this machine not only digests, it also passes gas. So people actually pay to go look at this piece of art. I mean, this guy's museum is offensive and fascinating and weird. And the guy made all his money on in internet gambling. And his museum is the biggest tourist attraction in Tasmania.
Oh
It's
wow.
it's astonishing. But so I based a fictional museum on that museum that's impossible to rob because it's inside a mountain for my Japanese museum that has a bunch of weird things. But yeah, that place made an impact on me. I knew I had to write about it in a book after I came up with an idea for robbing it. So I did. And like the book I'm writing now, the opening takes place in Singapore. I originally had planned to open it in Bangkok, but when I went to Singapore, I saw Marina Bay and the Apple Store in the middle of Marina Bay, and I went, "Oh my God, that would be a great fictional museum for my plans." And I changed everything. I put the opening in Singapore.
It was kind of a question that I had. Is there a character or a scene that you wrote that you had to completely remove in the editing process? Or are you such one of those magnificent writers that when you go poof, your book is ready to go to print?
I'm one of those magnificent writers. But I do write detailed outlines. I'm not one of these people who makes it up as it goes along. I
Oh,
know where I'm going. I know what my clues are. I know who done it. I'm not just, hoping to find the story as I write. I know what I'm going for. And when I come up with an idea for a book and a vague idea of what locations I want to use, I go to those places if I can. Because I think nothing beats feet on the ground. Seeing a place, seeing the people, smelling the smells, tasting the food. And I've altered my story significantly by going to those places.
I
Like
got you.
I did a whole jewel robbery in Belgium after going to Antwerp because it just I saw the streets and I changed everything I had in mind once I actually was there. Um, so, doing research will change how I do a book. In fact, the Eve Ronin series came about by accident. I went to a homicide investigators training conference to research an entirely different book, but a case was presented there that made me throw out the book I intended to write, and I came up with Eve Ronin in a night of insomnia and the book I wanted to write in one night. I knew what I wanted to write, and then the next morning I started researching that book, having gone on this trip and spent the money to attend this seminar for another book that I never ended up writing.
So, how many books have you published?
I haven't kept count. If you look on Wikipedia, I think they're all there. I think it's close to 70.
Oh, wow. Okay. Uh, you've been around a while. Tell us a little bit about Ian Ludlow.
Ian Ludlow, the novels, or me as Ian Ludlow?
You is Ian Ludlow.
Ian Ludlow was my pen name. Ian for Ian Fleming, Ludlow,
Uh,
so I'd be on the shelf next to Robert Ludlum. It was I don't know if you can see the painting behind me up on the wall there.
uh-huh.
This is back in the day when they painted covers of books.
Yeah.
I was a college student at UCLA. I was 18 years old, and I had a journalism professor who wrote thrillers. And he befriended me, or I befriended him, and he would show me his novels he was writing, and I'd give him my opinions on the story and on the sex scenes, even though I hadn't had sex. I was an expert on everything. I gave him, I'd never traveled, but I had comments about all his international stuff. And one day his publisher came to him and asked him if he would write a men's action adventure series. This was the early 80s. And they were the male equivalent of the Harlequin romance. They had titles like the Destroyer, the Executioner, the Defecator, the Drooler, the Masturbator, whatever. It always had ER, OR at the end, and some guy on the cover with a big gun, and women in the background with big boobs and explosions and all that. And you found them at finer 7-Elevens and Safeways and military bases. And he said that he wasn't hungry enough, stupid enough, or desperate enough to write one of these books, but he knew somebody who was, and he recommended me. So I wrote a sample chapter and outline under the pseudonym Ian Ludlow because I knew Lee Goldberg wasn't going to sell books. But if I was on the shelf next to the number one best-selling author in the country at the time, maybe I had a shot because his books all had, the Brandenburg Gate and, Doric columns and people with briefcases. I would have Hooters and explosions. So I figured my books were more eye-catching. So I wrote this book called 357 Vigilante by Ian Ludlow, and I had literary aspirations back then. And it was about a guy whose father's a cop, and his father gets gunned down, so he becomes a vigilante to avenge his father's death, and he calls himself Mr. Jury. And but I was, like I said, I had literary aspirations, so he couldn't get it up. He had every time he was with a woman, he would see all the people he killed that day and couldn't do it. And I thought that gave him depth and character. And I sent this manuscript into my publisher, and the editor said, "Are you out of your freaking mind? It's a men's action adventure novel. Not only is he having sex, he's having amazing sex." Fine. So I rewrote these sex scenes that defied gravity, that defied anatomy. I mean, I'd have him look at a woman and she'd collapse into spasms of orgasms. I would have positions that weren't possible, not unless you had a couple of hinges in your spine. I wrote all this stuff and I sent it in. And this is back in the day when you had to mail your manuscripts to the publisher and wait to get a call back. So I hear back a couple of weeks later from the editor. Lee, I read the new scenes. Uh-huh. I knew what the next line was going to be. You're fired. Canceling the contract. But no, what he said was, not only were the scenes hot, they were real. And I thought, oh my God. Now, by this time I was having sex, but still, I thought, oh my God, if that's real sex, I'm the worst lover in the world. I'm not equipped to to be with any woman. Oh my God. So the books
Oh,
came out, there were four of them, and that was the oil painting that was used for each cover. All they
oh,
changed was the scene at the bottom. They put a
oh.
different action scene there, and years later I bought the painting from the cover artist. Um, but the book, the first one, came out the same week this guy Bernard Getz blew away some muggers on a New York subway train. So
Hmm.
vigilantes were hot. The book became a huge bestseller. New World Pictures bought the movie rights, hired me to write the script, and that's how my screenwriting career was born. The movie
Oh,
never got made, and I never got a dime from those four vigilante novels because Pinnacle went under before my first royalty check was due.
oh
And the whole
no.
vigilante book series was locked up in their 15-year bankruptcy. I mean, it's
Oh.
just, I finally got the rights back and I self-published the three books that were published as the Jury series by Lee Goldberg, my own name on them. And then the unpublished fourth novel I released as well. So they're available on Kindle. And it's funny, I put on there I wrote these books when I was a teenager. They were the first things I ever wrote. And people read them going, this is shit. It doesn't live up to Lee's last book. Well, no, I wrote them 40, 50 years ago, whatever it was, when I was a kid. They were the first thing. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Did you read what was on the product description? I was a teenager when I wrote these.
Oh, that kind of brings up my next question. If is there advice that you would give to your college age person, being you, to do as to become a successful writer that you are today?
Well, I can't give him too much advice because it worked.
Yeah,
So whatever I
true.
was doing back then worked. But I would say relax. All your dreams are going to come true. And don't try to be so clever in your writing. Let the characters carry the cleverness. Don't be so into being funny and clever in the prose. Do it through character and dialogue. I mean, I learned a lot, obviously, since then. I mean, I look at what I wrote then and I cringe. Um, but I did pay homage to myself. Boy, does that sound immodest. But I wrote three novels about a spy named Ian Ludlow. Not really a
Oh.
spy, about this author whose spy novels started coming true. And he has to be kind of the spy he wrote about to survive. And so it's this author named Ian Ludlow who has to become an action hero. And I did three books about this character, Ian Ludlow, creating all kinds of confusion for people. The books were called True Fiction, Killer Thriller, and Fake Truth. And True Fiction was a huge success. It was number one on Amazon for an entire month. The movie rights keep being bought. They haven't made a movie out of that yet either. But that was great fun because I was deconstructing the spy novel and making fun of myself at the same time.
Have you ever thought about bringing, like, say, Monk and Bixby together, or any two detectives together?
I do it all the time. I can't bring Monk and Bixby together because I don't own Monk. Monk is owned by Universal Television. Same thing with Diagnosis Murder. I don't own Dr. Mark Sloan and those characters. However, I have crossed over everybody else. Eve Ronan has appeared in my Sharp and Walker novels. Sharp and Walker has appeared in my Eve Ronan novels. Eve Ronan is in my new Bixby that I'm writing right now. Some of the characters from the Sharp and Walker and Eve Ronan series are in Murder by Design. I even have Ian Ludlow make a sort of an appearance in the Eve Ronan books. And I wrote a book a long time ago called Watch Me Die, and the lead character of that has shown up in an Eve Ronan novel. So yeah, I have for my own amusement brought characters from all my other series into my books.
Do you know, like, when you start a series, a new one, do you know how many it will be going forward, or do you kind of keep that open to see organically how it will go?
It's not up to me, it's up to you. No, it is. It's out of my hands. If the books don't sell, there's not going to be a sequel. The books have to sell a certain number of copies for the publisher to say, we want more of this crap. So yeah, I have to. It really is sales driven, and then also to a certain point, it's creatively driven in that sometimes I just need a break. It's like I want to do something else besides just Eve Ronan. I mean, I could just do Eve Ronan. My publisher would be happy, and the readers would be happy. But I like to shake things up to refresh me, and I think it's nice to have a pause between books. So I try not to have more than 6 months or a year go between Eve Ronans. But by having these crossovers where Eve Ronan will appear in a Sharp and Walker, it kind of keeps that character alive if it's longer than a year between books. Same for Sharp and Walker. I can have them appear in an Eve Ronan if it's going to be more than 6 months or a year between Sharp and Walker novels. And because of Bixby, it might be longer than a year before I'm back to either Eve Ronan or Sharp and Walker. That's not entirely true. I'm writing an Eve Ronin that's due in October. They'll probably be out in October of 2028. 2027. So, yeah, I know what's coming, but it really a lot depends on, most of it depends on sales. The rest depends on just what I'm in the mood for and what I need to recharge my batteries.
This morning when I was at the gym, I was telling everybody who that I was going to get to interview today. Oh my Lanta, like they were blowing up, throwing questions at me to ask you today. But the number one question they asked was, will there be any more collabs? And with specifically Janet Ivanovich.
No. And
That
not
was
and
one of
not
the big questions.
not because we had any sort of animosity. Janet and I are dear friends. We had a fantastic time writing those Fox and O'Hare books. But there were other things I wanted to write. And if I hadn't walked away from that, there would be no Eve Ronin novels. There'd be no Edison Bixby. And I made it a conscious decision that I wanted to write books that were entirely my own. Not that I didn't have a blast writing those books with Janet. We had such a good time. I mean, I think it comes through in the books. We had so much fun. But I could have ended up writing those books forever and never wrote these other books. So I had made the hard decision after book 5. This has been so much fun. I've taken these characters to a certain place. I think it's time for me to walk away because you can end up, if you're writing with James Patterson or Clive Cussler or Janet Ivanovich, it's enticing because the books are going to be hugely successful. They're going to debut at #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. It makes things so easy and it's still not entirely yours. I mean, I work a lot in TV. In fact, I'll give you one plug. My new series, I shouldn't call it my new series. The series I've been working on, You're Killing Me, starring Brooke Shields, premieres May 18th on Acorn and AMC Plus. It's a lighthearted murder mystery created by Robin Bernheim, with whom I co-created the Hallmark series Mystery 101. Collaboration is what I do in TV. I work with a whole lot of other writers, and books are the one thing that are entirely my own. I don't need to shape it to fit anybody else's point of view. And as much as I loved working with Janet, it was still a shared thing. I had to satisfy her. She had to satisfy me. It was not necessarily how I might have done things on my own, or she might have done things on her own. So, and again, I haven't read the Fox and O'Hares that have followed, but I've certainly heard from people who haven't been happy with them because I think Janet and I had a unique voice together that couldn't be replicated. And I think I have my own voice that I hope can't be replicated. It's also why I have turned down so many offers to have someone co-write books with me. Oh, you could, supervise, or you could. It's like, no, I don't even want to do that, where I'm co-authoring a book with somebody else, where I give them the story maybe and rewrite them, whatever. It's muddies the brand. It's too much work. I just want to write my own books. Now maybe I'll change my mind later, but for now, I just don't see myself co-authoring with anybody.
Has Murder by Design been optioned yet?
Not yet. We're certainly getting calls, but so far no one has backed up a Brinks truck to my house. I have to go back to you, Teresa. Were the people who asked you about my book, what was the age demographic and the sex demographic? Was it all women? Were they in their 90s? Were they in their 20s? Was it a mix?
It was all women and between 30 and 55.
That seems to be my sweet spot. I notice at signings and things, that's my audience. I do get some men, but mostly it's women in that age range.
I promise I'll be being where you get to do the screenwriting too. So like in our interviews, we see a lot of authors who have lost the rights to their book. Like, it was great to get that check, great to talk about it. It's going to be optioned for X, Y, and Z, but they don't get the creative control over it. Do you like so being a screenwriter too, does that give you more creative control over things, or do you still let
it's
go?
a complicated answer. I think most authors are naive, bordering on stupid when it comes to dealing with Hollywood. Movies and TV shows are entirely different ways of telling a story. And no book or TV show is going to be true to the book. No movie or TV show is going to be true to the book. It's impossible. It's a different medium with different demands, different ways of telling stories. But also, a TV series is 44 minutes per episode. It's in 4 acts. It has to be done in X many days on a certain budget with so many interior sets, so many exterior sets. There's so many demands on it. A movie is 120 pages. It's 2 hours. It's got to condense things. And there's a real skill set involved beyond writing, where you have to have a keen understanding of production. And authors just aren't, most authors, 99% of them, don't know how television and film work. They are their own worst enemy when dealing with Hollywood. You want to let the professionals do it. Let the people who know what they're doing do their jobs. And I'll tell you now, it will not be your book because it's a different medium. They will at best capture the feel of the book, the characters, the essence of it. And many times like The Godfather and Jaws and Terms of Endearment and Cider House Rules and so many others, the movie will be better than your damn book. So relax, collect your money. I mean, you look at Kathy Reichs, the Bones TV series bore virtually no resemblance to her books.
None.
It lasted 12 years and made her a gazillionaire. Do you think she gives a crap that it's different? No. No. I've been on both sides. I have adapted books for film and TV, and I've had my books adapted. I've been on both sides of the table. I know how it works. So when I option my books for television or film, here's the speech I always give to the producer, director, or screenwriter or studio that's optioning my book. If it sounds rehearsed, it's only because I've given this speech 10,000 times. I will be as involved or uninvolved as you want me to be. If you want me to just sit at home, wait for it to show up on TV or in the movie theater and collect my check, I'll do that. If you want me to read the script, give you my ideas on casting, show up in the writer's room now and then, or read a draft of the screenplay and give you my thoughts, I'll do that too. If you want me to earn my executive producer credit on a TV show, for instance, and be in the room and break stories and write scripts and help cast and help prep, I'll do that too. We will structure my deal at all three levels, and you just tell me what you want. And some will be very honest. They'll say, number one, we never want to see you again. Okay. You know, number two, we'd love to hear from you now and then, but not so much. Fine. And then number three, yes, we really want you involved. From a mercenary point of view, I want the hottest screenwriter or the hottest producer in television to do my project. And I want them to do it their way, the way that's made them successful. I don't want to get in their way. I don't want to be an impediment to my own success. So when a producer comes to me or a screenwriter and tells me, here's what we want to do with your book, and they ask me what I think, unless it's outrageously horrible, I will say, it doesn't matter what I think. It's your movie. It's your TV show. So my job is to help you with your vision. Because it's not mine anymore, it's yours. I don't want to get in the way of what you're doing. So if I can be a help to you in furthering your vision of the book, let me know how I can help. So I don't criticize. There have been times where I've loved 50% of what they're doing and hated 50%, but I know that if you're running a TV show based on a book, which I have done before, I've got to love it. I have to make it my own. I have to excite the actors, the directors, the other writers, the set designers. I have to make it something I'm passionate about that I can work on for years, that I can write 100 episodes or produce 100 episodes of. So I've got to give someone else that same latitude if they're optioning my book for TV or if they're making a movie out of it. I mean, if you look at Terms of Endearment, the Shirley MacLaine's character in the book had, I think it was 7 different boyfriends. And James L. Brooks condensed them all into Jack Nicholson's character. Mm-hmm. It worked beautifully. Yep. Cider House Rules covers 65 years in the book. It covers 10 years or 15 years in the movie. You got to give the filmmaker a chance to make it their own. I would argue that Get Shorty is a far better movie than Elmore Leonard's book, and I think he would tell you the same thing. Justified is a fantastic TV series, and the pilot was better than his novella, Elmore Leonard's novella. So sometimes you just got to believe in the people who are, and even if they do something you don't like, if it becomes a success, your books are still there, Yep. It's not like your books disappear.
You talk about the creative control and such. One of the most recent ones that has caused a bit of controversy on the internet and all the Reddits and stuff is the Scarpetta adaptation.
I haven't seen it.
Okay. Me personally, I enjoyed it. Is it like the books? Absolutely not. Not one bit. But she even had to come out and make a statement about basically what you said. Creative control is turned over, and but she says, I'm pleased with it. Okay. But
take a look at Bosch. The adaptations of his books in the episodic series, they take huge liberties, condensing and changing things. And there have been times where I would argue, and I think Mike would agree, where the TV adaptation was better. The plotting. And he's sort of in the middle ground on the show. He's involved. He's there in the writer's room at the beginning of the season, and was more involved in the early seasons than the later ones. But he gives them a lot of latitude in Lincoln Lawyer and Bosch to adapt his books, and they do a remarkable job capturing the true essence of Bosch and the Lincoln Lawyer. I would say those are fantastic adaptations. But are they loyal to his books? Hell no. Hell no. They changed so much, but it serves the characters well. It captures the feeling of reading those books, and that's what you want. Yeah. It's not undermining the books in any way.
Exactly.
Is there a character that you've had to lose that you miss?
What do you mean by lose?
like kill off? You wish you didn't have to lose a character, or that maybe something ended that you wanted to bring
Well,
back?
yeah, I
Is it
miss
hard?
it's less so in books than it is in television. I miss characters I spent so much of my time writing. There were series that were canceled too soon that I felt had more life in them, and I wish I could do more. That's why I left Diagnosis Murder to do a different series. And then Diagnosis Murder lived on for two more seasons, and I didn't like the way it kind of petered out. And so I wrote eight books to end the series the way I would have ended it had I stayed on the show. You know, and that was fun to stay with those characters. And I love Monk. The only reason I stopped doing Monk was after writing 15 books and the hundred and some episodes of the show that they did, there really was no more stories to tell. It was just at that point, it was just going back to the well, repeating yourself. I remember a moment in my 15th Monk novel where I was writing, going, "Oh God, this is going so well. I'm really in touch with my muse. Oh, I've written it before." I realized it was going so well because it was a scene I had written before, and that's when I knew I had to stop. And hopefully, I'll never get to that point with Eve Ronan or my other characters. But like there's the Ian Ludlow spy novels. I love that character. I could go back to writing those in a minute, but I got into Eve Ronan, and it was just more compelling to me. And every time I've thought about going back and writing another Ian Ludlow novel, there's an Edison Bixby or something else. And it's just my passion to go back isn't as strong as the passion for the new thing. And maybe someday I'll have an idea that's strong enough where I really do want to set everything else aside and go back and write another Ian Ludlow spy novel, but hasn't happened yet.
How many completed books do you have on a hard drive somewhere?
You mean that I've written and haven't been published?
Yeah.
Zero.
Oh,
Oh, no,
really?
no, I take that back. I have one. It's not completed. I don't know if you can see in the camera, but you might be able to see a hint of boxes and binders
Yeah.
behind that printer there. That's a book I started writing, and every time start writing it again, I get a contract for something else. And I haven't been able to finish that book. So that book I want to finish and publish. Hopefully, I'll get to do that in a year or so.
Yeah.
But it's a book I'm passionate about. It's a crime novel, but I haven't been able to finish it yet. But no, I have no unpublished novels.
Oh, okay.
I've been very lucky. Every novel I've written on spec, True Fiction, Lost Hills, Calico, were all published.
Is there anything that we didn't ask you that you would like to talk about?
I did not start doing my hair to mimic Gavin Newsom. Just my wife said, put mousse in your hair. It's not like I want to be him,
So
but that's how I
that's kind of
look. I
like
look
me.
like my wife and daughter made me do it, and now I look like a bad Gavin Newsom impersonator.
Are you gonna do a book tour or any signings with this one?
At the moment, nothing's scheduled, but I never know. I mean, I might be invited to go to a library event or a book festival, but at the moment, it's kind of up in the air because I don't know yet whether we're going to have a second season of You're Killing Me. But if we are, it likely means I'll be tied up in production during the summer, which would prevent me from doing signings. I'd be out of the country. We shoot the show in Canada, so I'm a little hesitant to make any plans now because I don't want to have to cancel them because I'm in Toronto or Halifax or somewhere.
Is there a bookstore, maybe an independent store or a local to you that people can get signed copies if they want them?
There's a bookseller, Mystery Inc.
Hmm.
INK. Debbie Mitch is the proprietor of that bookstore. She provides books to a lot of the events that I go to,
Okay.
and she can always usually get her hands get run into me to get books signed. She
Gotcha.
doesn't live near me, but I just end up going to events where she is at, and she does. I would say most of the events I do around here in Southern California, she ends up supplying the books for.
Okay. What are your social media handles and what
Oh, I'm so easy. LeeGoldberg.com is my website. I'm Lee Goldberg on Twitter. I'm Lee Goldberg on Instagram, or maybe I'm Lee Goldberg 007 on Instagram. I'm Lee Goldberg on Facebook. I'm John Grisham in the bookstores. I'm also on Blue Sky. I'm Lee Goldberg at Blue Sky. I'm
Okay.
Lee Goldberg. I mean, I'm also easy to find. I'm Lee at LeeGoldberg.com. It's not
Okay.
like I'm in hiding.
I do have one more question. So,
Okay.
does
Go
your
ahead.
wife ever say, "For Pete's sake, will you slow down"?
No. What she does say is, I sure as hell hope you're not doing that god-awful French accent because I don't sound like Inspector Clouseau. And I say, no, honey, don't worry. I love you far too much to ever do the French accent. So I try to wait till she's out of the house when I do it in podcast, but I think she may have heard me. She's downstairs. I try not to do it at conferences either, but sometimes people in the audience go, "Oh, tell us a story about your wife and do the accent." She has a wonderful, sweet, beautiful French accent that I can't do. I can only do Inspector Clouseau. Though it's funny when I'm in France and I'm trying to speak French, excusez-moi, je voudrais quelque chose de boire. And my wife goes, "Oh God, the accent's terrible. Just do Clouseau." Ah, merci beaucoup. Je voudrais quelque chose de boire, s'il vous plaît. So even though I sound ridiculous, it's still better than me trying to do an authentic French accent.
What's next for you book wise? What after Bixby's first book? What is your next book?
I have a new Eve Ronin called Split Screen coming out in October, and it's a pivotal book in the series, so a lot changes for her in that book. And at the moment, I am writing the next Edison Bixby, The
Yeah.
Invisible Architect, already available for pre-order, even though I haven't written it yet.
I know I saw
Talk about
that.
putting pressure on me. Um, it's
They've
already
already got
there.
a pub date on it too.
I know. I'm feeling tension already because the book's not done yet. I'm still here writing it.
Oh, thank you for joining us today. Be sure to check out Lee Goldberg's new novel, Murder by Design. It's available now on Amazon as a first read, and you can order it print June 1st. Thanks to Stephanie at Megan Beta Communications for setting all of this up. Thank you for Lee for taking the time out of your day to visit with us. Y'all pre-order his book. Thank you.